They profit, you bleed. That is not a metaphor, that is the exact transaction happening inside your paycheck right now, and by the time this ends, you will not be able to unsee it in your own job. Your company is bleeding you dry with loyalty, slowly, quietly, in a way designed to never feel like theft. And if you stay until the final second of this, you will see the 8 exact mechanisms doing it to you right now, today, without your consent. Most people believe loyalty is a virtue that eventually gets rewarded. Stay long enough, absorb enough, prove yourself dependable enough, and a company will notice, and the company will pay you what you deserve. This belief runs so deep that people build entire identities around it. Good employees don't job hop. Good employees pay their dues. Good employees earn trust before they earn money. You were taught that patience is investment, and investment always pays out eventually. That belief feels safe. It feels responsible. It feels like the mature adult way to build a career. Here is the part nobody tells you. Loyalty does not compound like an investment. It depreciates the moment your company realizes you are not leaving. The instant they clock that you are emotionally attached, financially settled, or too identity fused with the job to walk away, your leverage does not grow, it collapses. Loyalty is not currency. It is a discount, and your employer is the only one cashing it in. I have traced this exact pattern across hundreds of documented workplace cases, salary audits, and internal retention strategies never meant to reach an employee's eyes. And the pattern repeats with disturbing precision. By the end of this, you will know exactly which of these 8 mechanisms is draining you right now, and once you see it, it cannot be unseen again. The first thing companies strip away from a loyal employee is not money, it is information. Pay transparency is discouraged, salary conversations are labeled unprofessional, and most loyal employees have no idea what the person sitting 3 desks away is earning for the exact same output. This is not an accident. It is a deliberate design. When you cannot compare, you cannot negotiate, because negotiation requires a benchmark, and a company that controls the flow of salary information controls your ceiling without ever telling you where it is. Picture the employee who's been at a company for 6 years, never once discussed pay with a coworker, and assumes she's being paid fairly simply because no one told her otherwise. Meanwhile, the new hire, 2 months in, armed with market data from 3 job boards, walks in and negotiates 15% more for the identical role. Loyalty did not protect her. Silence did. This is why the most loyal employees are often the most underpaid, not because they lack skill, but because they lack the one thing that would let them see the gap: comparison. If this is already making you uncomfortable, drop a comment with the word blind, because I guarantee half the people watching this just realized they have never once asked a coworker what they make. That single admission is more revealing than any performance review you've ever received. But the blind vacuum is only the entry point. What happens after you finally do find the courage to ask for more is where the real psychological weapon comes out, and it is far more personal than pay secrecy ever was. Here is the mechanism most people never name, because it doesn't feel like manipulation in the moment. It feels like a reasonable conversation. The instant a loyal employee asks for a raise, a promotion, or more flexibility, companies quietly deploy a specific emotional weapon: your own history against you. After everything we've done for you, we took a chance on you when no one else would. You know how much this company has invested in your growth. This is not a rebuttal to your request. It is a debt collection notice for a debt you never actually owed. Every act of past loyalty gets reframed in that exact moment as a favor you now have to repay with silence and gratitude instead of currency.
Think about the employee who covered a maternity leave for 4 months without complaint, then a year later asked for a title change to match her actual responsibilities, only to be told, "We really appreciated you stepping up back then," as if her past sacrifice was a loan she was still paying interest on instead of value she had already delivered in full. This is the cruelest mechanism on this list because it turns your own goodwill into a leash. The company isn't rewarding your loyalty, it's billing you for it. And if you've ever felt that specific sting of guilt after asking for something you were owed, hit subscribe right now because this channel exists to name exactly these moments before they happen to you again. This point alone could end an entire career's worth of underpayment if people understood it early enough. But the next mechanism is what makes leaving even harder once you finally see the trap clearly. Every year, a loyal employee stays past the point of fair compensation, an invisible tax accumulates, and it is not paid in money, it is paid in market relevance. Skills that were competitive 5 years ago quietly age, salary expectations calcify around an outdated number, confidence to interview erodes from disuse. The longer loyalty keeps you in place, the higher the cost becomes to ever leave, which means the company doesn't need to actively trap you, time does the trapping for them. Consider the employee who stayed loyal for 8 years, never updated a resume, never practiced an interview, and when finally forced to look elsewhere after a layoff, discovered the market had moved past the skills she once considered cutting edge. That is not bad luck. That is the exit tax compounding silently the entire time she believed loyalty was protecting her. This is precisely why so many people describe feeling stuck without being able to name why. It's not the job itself, it's the accumulated cost of staying that makes leaving feel impossible, even when staying is clearly the worse option. If you've ever felt that stuck feeling and couldn't explain why, share this with someone you know is feeling exactly that right now, because naming this mechanism is the first step to escaping it before the tax gets any higher. But time isn't the only thing quietly working against you. There's a psychological ledger being kept that most employees never even know exists. Companies keep an informal, unspoken tally of everything you sacrificed, every cancelled weekend, every skipped raise conversation, every extra hour absorbed without complaint, and they use that accumulated sacrifice as leverage to extract more from you, because you feel like you've already invested too much to stop now. This is sunk cost, but weaponized specifically through the language of loyalty rather than logic. The employee who has already given 5 years, 3 cancelled vacations and countless late nights doesn't calculate the next request rationally, she calculates it emotionally, thinking, "I've already given this much, what's a little more?" That single thought pattern is worth more to a company than any contract clause because it means you will keep saying yes long after saying no would have been the correct financial decision. Watch closely for this in your own life this week. Notice every time you agree to something extra and ask yourself honestly whether you said yes because it was fair or because you felt you owed it after everything you'd already given. That distinction alone will change how you negotiate for the rest of your career. If this point just reframed a decision you made recently, comment the word ledger below so I know this is landing exactly where it needs to. This mechanism runs quietly in the background, but the next one operates completely differently, hiding in plain sight inside the very language your company uses to describe itself. The moment a company starts calling itself a family, pay attention, because family language exists specifically to discourage transactional thinking about your labor. Families don't ask for raises. Families don't negotiate. Families sacrifice for each other without expecting anything in return. And once that frame is planted in your mind, asking for fair market pay starts to feel like betraying a relationship rather than conducting normal business. This is precisely why so many people who work at companies that lean hardest on "we're a family here" language are often the most underpaid relative to their market value, because the emotional frame makes financial requests feel almost shameful. Picture the team meeting where leadership talks about family and loyalty right before announcing another year without raises, and somehow the room nods along instead of asking hard questions because the language has already done its job before the numbers were even mentioned. This single reframe, family instead of employer, employee instead of team member, is doing more damage to your negotiating power than almost anything else on this list. If you've ever heard this exact phrase at your own job, like this video right now, because the algorithm needs to know how many people are recognizing this pattern in real time. The next mechanism works in nearly the opposite direction, not through emotional language, but through something that looks like career progress on paper.
Instead of raising your pay, many companies raise your title. And because titles feel like status and status feels like progress, most employees accept the trade without noticing the actual value they lost. Senior associate becomes team lead becomes manager. Each promotion arrives with new responsibilities, longer hours, and almost no corresponding increase in compensation. Think about the employee who received 3 title changes in 4 years and a combined salary increase smaller than what an honest negotiation would have delivered in year 1. She felt like she was climbing. She was actually being paid in prestige, while the company kept the difference. This is one of the hardest traps to see because it disguises itself as career growth, and most people don't calculate their actual dollar per responsibility ratio until years later, if ever. That gap right there between how progress feels and what it actually pays is exactly why this next point matters so much, because it explains why companies can afford to keep doing this without getting caught. Here's what almost no loyal employee understands about their own value. Companies routinely underestimate what it would actually cost to replace you, and they use that miscalculation to justify paying you less than your real worth. Recruitment costs, training time, lost institutional knowledge, and productivity dips during onboarding rarely get factored honestly into compensation decisions, because doing so would mean admitting you're worth more than what you're currently being paid. The employee who believes she's easily replaceable negotiates timidly. The employee who understands her actual replacement cost negotiates from an entirely different position of power. Watch till the end of this video, because understanding this single number, what it would genuinely cost to replace you, tools, time, training, and disruption included, is one of the most valuable pieces of leverage most people never calculate before walking into a salary conversation. This illusion protects companies from having to pay fair value, but it only works as long as you don't do the math yourself. Which brings us to the final mechanism, the one that ties every single point on this list together into one complete picture. The annual raise, the 2 or 3% bump handed out like a reward every January, is engineered to feel like appreciation while quietly losing to inflation year after year. It feels like something. It functions as almost nothing. Most employees never calculate their real inflation-adjusted earning power over a 5 or 10-year span because each individual raise feels like proof that loyalty is being rewarded, even as their actual purchasing power slowly declines. This is the slowest, most invisible mechanism on the entire list, and it's the one that ties every previous point together. The silence that prevents comparison, the guilt interest rate, the exit tax, the sacrifice ledger that keeps you saying yes, the family language that makes negotiation feel like betrayal, the title inflation that disguises stagnant pay as progress, and the replacement cost illusion that undervalues you from the start. All of it culminates here, in a raise that was never designed to keep up, only to keep you quiet. Comment the word boiled right now if you've just realized your last 5 raises never actually kept pace with what things cost today, because that single realization is the entire point of this video. 8 mechanisms, 1 conclusion. Companies don't bleed you dry with a single dramatic betrayal. They do it in silence, in small print, in language dressed up as care.
And now that you've seen the comparison vacuum, the guilt interest rate, the exit tax, the sacrifice ledger, the family language trap, the title inflation trap, the replacement cost illusion, and the slow boil raise, you cannot walk back into your job tomorrow and see it the same way you saw it yesterday. That is the whole point. Reality was supposed to beat your expectations today, and if you came in only expecting a video about being underpaid, you're leaving with a complete forensic map of exactly how it happens, mechanism by mechanism, year by year. Here is what none of this means. It does not mean loyalty is worthless, and it does not mean you should walk into work tomorrow and quit. It means loyalty without leverage is just a slow transaction where you're the only one not getting paid for your side of it. The moment you can name a mechanism, you strip it of its power, because manipulation only works in the dark, and you just turn the lights on in 8 different rooms at once.
If any single one of these 8 hit closer than the others, say which number it was in the comments right now, because I read every single one, and the pattern in your answers tells me exactly what this channel needs to expose next. If this reframed even one decision you're about to make it work, that is worth more than a like. But hit the like button anyway, because it tells the algorithm to put this in front of someone else who is sitting in the exact same trap you were sitting in an hour ago, not knowing it had a name. Subscribe if you want to keep seeing the mechanisms most people never get shown, because this channel exists for exactly one reason: to reveal what your quadrant is actually doing to you, while everyone else calls it normal. And if you know someone right now, a coworker, a friend, someone who just got another title change instead of a raise, or someone who's been quiet about pay because that's just not something we talk about here, send them this video, because the fastest way out of a trap is knowing it exists, and you might be the only person in their life who's ever going to tell them. You've seen how companies bleed you dry with loyalty. Now go watch what happens on the other side of that same coin, in How Loyalty Bleeds You Broke While Companies Profit. Because this video showed you the mechanism, that one shows you exactly where the money goes once it leaves your hands. And if you want to see how this same psychology shows up in power dynamics at work, not just paychecks, go back and watch How Smart Employees Stay Broke Forever. Because once you understand both sides of this system, you stop being surprised by any of it.